All right, today we're going to be checking out the brand new Rasasi Hawas Fire. I was looking around online. I had a peek at the note breakdown just out of curiosity, and it's kind of interesting. The notes and the name and color aren't really correlating here. This looks like it's going to be a marine scent. We'll find out on our own here in a second when we go ahead and open it up. Now, this one is available over at Fragrance Buy. If you want to grab a bottle for yourself, you can buy it through them. I believe they're the first discounter, at least the first discounter shipping within the US and Canada that has this one right now. So definitely check it out if you want. We'll see how it stacks up against the rest. Of course, Hawas Black is a really interesting situation on its own. So aside from that one, we'll see how it stacks up against Ice in the original. So yeah, this one, I can already smell it. I believe we might have a little bit of a leak going on here. As you can see, this is just live on camera. It's a little bit wet, okay? You can tell right there, all right? So, yeah, we had a little bit of some seepage going on. Yeah, I don't know, the whole inside is wet as well. You could just see a drip fell off. I'm soaked in this stuff. So, yeah, that kind of sucks. I guess they just didn't get a good enough crimp. Not Fragrance Buy's fault, probably not the carrier's fault. This is probably just a little mishap at the factory, I suppose. So, I can already smell it. This whole bottle is soaking wet. But let's at least atomize it and we'll see kind of what we have going on. I mean, look at this. This is just, ugh. All right, so fresh, definitely. And actually, you know what? Kind of a fresh cinnamon kick. So fire kind of makes a little bit of sense here. Fresh, spicy, sweet. So I'm picking up on an apple similar that was used in Hawas Ice. Kind of that sweet apple. And in that instance there, Hawas Ice kind of had a little bit of a Y eau de parfum type of smell going on, just a very familiar smell. This one, it has some of that, and then it also has cinnamon. Yeah, I mean, when I hold this upside down, it drips. We got some leakage going on here, so yeah. Fresh, marine, invigorating with a cinnamon little twist going on as well. So let's go and take a look at the note breakdown. We'll see what the official note listing says. This is Fragrantica. Up top we have clary sage. In the mid we have marine notes and jasmine. In the base we have mineral notes, ambergris, and amber. So while they're not listing off like a cinnamon here, I still pick up on it a decent amount. And maybe if it's not a cinnamon, maybe it's more of a pink pepper, but definitely some sort of sweeter spiciness going on. As I mentioned, a freshness for sure. So, the marine notes, the mineral notes, they make some sense. Now, as far as what it's a clone of, right? Because you kind of expect it to be a clone of something given it's a Rasasi, right? And it's a Hawas in particular. And that's kind of where it's a little bit bizarre to me because it's not screaming out and smelling like any one thing in particular. It's another example kind of like with Hawas Ice, which I've talked about before, where it's less clone of one thing and more so just taking a broad sweep at a bunch of things that you've smelled before. So when you look at what people are comparing this one to, the first one is Acqua di Gio Profondo Parfum, and honestly, I can see that a little bit. Because I definitely don't get any comparison to the original Profondo, okay? That one, while it does have mineral notes to a heavy extent, and while they list that off here in this Rasasi Hawas Fire, I'm not really actually picking up on that here in this particular instance. Again, a freshness and a marine smell for sure, but it's not connecting in the same way that it would with Profondo. Although Profondo Parfum, being that it is a little bit more sweet, and still marine, but just lesser to the extent of the regular Profondo, I can see that to somewhat of a degree here. Pretty close, actually. As it dries down, I see that more. When I first sprayed this one on, I did not make that connection. I didn't think that it had smelled like or reminded me of Profondo Parfum on the initial spray. That initial spray, I picked up on that cinnamon / pink pepper sweet spiciness to a heavy extent. It's died down somewhat now, still prevalent, but just not as in your face. So I guess that's one way you could look at it. The next one on here is, what is this? It's Profondo Lights. Kind of throwing back to something old and discontinued. Truthfully, it's been a long time since I've smelled that one. I do have it sitting back behind me on the shelf. Let's check. Here's the bottle of Profondo Lights. If you didn't know, these actually glow in the dark, or the letters do. That's kind of where it got its name, I guess. So let's do it up in the air here. Wow, I mean, off the opening, absolutely nothing alike. This one's a lot more fresh. It's fresher, it's woodier, it doesn't really have the marine type of smell in the same way that the other Profondo variants do. So at least off the opening, not really picking up on a similarity there. It's also one of those things where Profondo Lights, it never was that popular, and it's been discontinued for a while now. I don't see that one being in too much of a high demand. You keep looking, and it gets a little bit more strange, like we have Armaf Club de Nuit Intense Man. This smells nothing like Armaf Club de Nuit Intense Man or Aventus, so I want to make that very clear. The regular Profondo, again, I kind of touched on that a little bit. It just does, it's lacking the same type of mineral notes potency. Eros Energy, it couldn't be further from that, okay? It doesn't have the strong lemon, bergamot, kind of lime association going on. It also, by comparison, Eros Energy has a little bit of an Aventus smell to it, which this does not, so I would cross that one off. Regular Creed Aventus is on here up next. Again, we already covered that. Is this Naxos? Yeah, Zerzhov Naxos. Very, very, very different as well. And then we have a few like Nishane Hasavat X, Nishane Hasavat, and that's about it. So that's kind of where it falls. You know what, honestly, one that I didn't see on there that I think definitely it smells similar to is regular Rasasi Hawas Ice, okay? I do think it has some of that going on. And again, I feel like this note breakdown is missing some things, like they didn't list off an apple. I pick up on it. Some sort of cinnamon, spice, / pink pepper, sweet spice. Not listed, but I do pick up on it. So I think there are definitely some things missing, you know. But as I'm smelling it now, and it's been sitting on my skin for about, I don't know, 8 minutes or so we've been recording, and it's still a bit sweet. So, you know, closer to something like Profondo Parfum, if anything. It's too sweet to be regular Profondo, lacks the mineral notes to be regular Profondo. Smells nothing like the original Rasasi Hawas either, so it's not, you know, an Invictus Aqua smelling concoction. So that's another thing to keep in mind as well. You know, I think it's, I wouldn't say it has, I don't know, I guess, could you say that this has a little bit of originality to it? Maybe. Most people probably aren't going to want to admit that. And I don't know if I'm fully on board with whether or not it has originality to it, because it still smells very similar to things that I have smelled and that you have probably smelled before. But it's also, to me, it still isn't 100% cut and dry like a lot of other clones are. And I've been seeing that more and more lately where, you know, some of these clones are just kind of, you know, a combination of a few. I'll be honest, I'm ready to just stop holding this because my hand is still getting soaked. I mean, this thing is still, uh-oh, yeah, it just came apart now. Okay, so yeah, the glue let go on the cap. It's just kind of a mess, guys, to be honest with you. I reek of this stuff. That's the other thing. How's performance going to be? I guess we'll have to find out. It's an eau de parfum concentration, and so we'll see. I would imagine it's probably going to be pretty strong. It feels strong. It's very oily, okay, if you can see it on my hand or not. It's kind of a mess right now, but that's pretty much it. Is this one that you're going to want to rush out and get right now? You know, I don't know. I think it depends on what you already have and what you like. You know, if you want something that is essentially a little bit less than half the price of Profondo Parfum, and it's in that similar kind of wheelhouse, that'd definitely be something to check out. I think it's going to be a good performer. The quality is fine. For a $40 scent, more than good enough, and that's kind of on par with what I've smelled before from Rasasi, so there's no problem there. Not a bad release. It's not one that blows me away, you know. I wish it was. Still, the original Hawas for me is the one to get. It's still my favorite. That one still just makes me happy and excited every time I smell it. Hawas Ice and Hawas Fire, they haven't hit the same way. Maybe it's just my bias and long-standing love for the original where these just don't stack up the same or what, but that's kind of how it is. By no means is it a bad scent. It's just, it's not all that fun and refreshing for me, you know, and I think as far as clones go, I think that I would like to see clones of some other things instead. Like, do we need a Profondo Parfum clone? Maybe at some point, but you know, maybe not right now. Alrighty guys, that's gonna do it for me. Rasasi Hawas Fire. Like I said, you know where to get it. Fragrance Buy. I'll link it down below if you want to check it out. Who knows, it's probably gonna sell out at some point soon. But that's really it. I'm gonna go wash my hands and get this stuff off me. Hopefully you guys have a great night. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time with another one. Take care.